Trixie's Forest Retreat by Crow's Crow. Chapter 9. Reconnaissance. Fluttershy? Trixie repeated the name, receiving a nod in return. It was a fitting name, she had to admit that much. Climbing back into the bed with Fluttershy's help, Trixie laid down in hopes of getting the pounding in her head to drop back down to the level it was when she'd woken up. Trixie looked at Fluttershy, who had gone silent again, with mild annoyance, but she let it go for the moment. It was clear that she was no threat to her, even if she could easily overpower her in Trixie's current state. She did not seem like the type. She could tell that she had sustained some kind of wound which explained her headache. The real worry was her weakened, no, merely less powerful, state and the fatigue. What's wrong with Trixie? She wondered aloud, trying to remember what happened. Trixie noticed Fluttershy was flinching, then nervously scrubbed her hoof along the rug. Finally, Fluttershy found her voice again. Trixie has she swallowed, concussion. I'm sorry. Nurse Redheart said to let you rest. It was so quiet, Trixie could barely make it out. At least it seemed she was more reliable for aid than she was conversation. A nurse? So Trixie is at a hospital. A shiver ran down her spine as she realized the only town nearby with a hospital for miles had been Ponyville. Her oncoming panic was interrupted by noticing Fluttershy shaking her head. Trixie is not in a hospital? Are you a nurse? Both questions received another shake, and Trixie raised a hoof, feeling frustrated again, but quickly slammed it back down on the bed just before she touched the sore spot again. She felt her heart beat in her throat. Safe. Though just how safe, she'd have to find out. Her voice quivered as she asked, "Is this Ponyville?" Fluttershy nodded at first, then upon seeing the terror spread across Trixie's face, she quickly added, "But on the outer edge. We thought you would like that more." A small walk away. Fluttershy looked at Trixie with wide eyes, as if she were as scared as she was. Oh, okay. Yes, Trixie likes that, Trixie supposes. So she now knew she was in Ponyville after all. But only on its very edge? It seemed like as good a compromise as she could ask for. It did, however, raise a few more questions. What made you think Trixie did not want to be in Ponyville? Perhaps she had said something to them. Much of the previous day was a blur. Because of the Ursa? Fluttershy looked uneasy, bringing it up to Trixie. Oh, I'm sorry. But I really have to get back to the animals. Please forgive me. I only came up because I heard a crash. Duh. Do you need anything? Trixie flinched slightly at the mention of the Ursa, pushing the thought back with a shudder. She tried to focus on Fluttershy's offer through the pulsing in her skull. Trixie wants a mirror, she said finally. This appeared to take Fluttershy off guard as she blinked and tilted her head in confusion. A mirror? Okay. Spreading her wings, she flew so slowly, she was almost floating up to the chimney mantle, fetching a small framed mirror for Trixie before taking her leave. Try to sleep. It's okay now. Trixie took the mirror, but her attention remained on the skittish mare. She had seen Pegasus fly often enough. Their fast motions and freedom often reminded her of birds, but this little display of floating had been pathetic in comparison. Less like a bird, more like a butterfly. She nodded. Lacking in one's race-defining trait, how sad. She was about to turn her attention away from the doorway when she noticed Fluttershy had stopped just outside the door. This puzzled Trixie, especially as she seemed to be speaking with someone, or at least moving her lips. It was hard enough to hear her when she was standing right next to Trixie after all. Trixie was slightly worried for a moment Fluttershy might be deranged, until she took notice of a second shadow, fortunately confirming there was some pony else there. Though this also seemed rather strange. Why was there another pony waiting right behind the doorpost? Why would the shy one be the only one to come in? Oh no. Don't tell Trixie, that was the assertive one. Her head hurt just imagining Fluttershy's friend being even more shy. The conversation seemed to conclude as Fluttershy walked away. The other pony must have turned to follow her, their tails swishing briefly into view. Trixie smirked, bemused at the sight. Well, that is as much as Trixie will ever see of the pony, a rainbow tail. Huh? A sudden sound of ticking caught Trixie's attention. She glanced down to find her own hooves were shaking involuntarily, tapping the small mirror. What's wrong now? Her chest felt tight, and her breathing became quicker. She quickly looked back at the door. Trixie could not explain it, but something there had sent chills down her whole body. Biting the blanket and quickly pulling it over her, she stared at the door, but the feeling she had before ebbed away again. A couple of deep, slow breaths were taken, trying to calm her nerves. "Oh, relax, Trixie, there's nothing there." Directing her attention back to the small mirror for distraction, Trixie began a spell to levitate it with her magic, but halted the attempt quickly when she felt pressure build in her head. "Oh, that Fluttershy just told Trixie." Grumbling with her own foolishness, she lifted up the mirror in her hopes to get a look at herself, dropping it immediately in shock. "Trixie's horrible." Gasping for breath, she raised the mirror again, staring at the almost unfamiliar face within. Around the bandages and cold packs, she could see the swelling and purplish patches of fur, rather than its usual blue. She briefly took a moment to consider. "That is weird. You'd only get that if mixed with." She grimaced, not finishing the sentence. Trixie examined herself in the mirror carefully, giving a winch at the thought that what she saw was actually the good parts. Her eyes lingered on the bandages. She slipped the mirror under her pillow with a sigh, shifting to get more comfortable before looking through the room again. She had not paid much attention before while trying to escape, but the first thing she took note of was the birdhouses hanging from the ceiling and nests in the rafters. What in Equestria? The bedridden unicorn was already fairly familiar with the bed itself, standing free on three sides in the middle of the room. It was made out of a butterfly-decorated green wood with quilted sheets, which also bore a butterfly pattern. Trixie guesses Fluttershy knows it too. Well, of course she would. She let her gaze sweep along the yellow walls. They were supported with sturdy wooden beams, only interrupted by a grey stone chimney that opened into an actual fireplace at the bottom. Some large dark-colored cloths were hung up on the walls in a few places. Trixie could just barely make out some light shining through, also for Trixie's benefit, or to keep Trixie from knowing her surroundings. In either case, she was glad not to have the sun in her eyes anymore. What few shelves there were had been decorated with picture frames, a few books, and what looked like homemade drawings hanging on the wall that the head of the bed was set up against, perhaps from a friendly filly or from her host herself in her fall hood. The floors were simple hardwood, and decorated only by a small red oval carpet at the foot of the bed. Though there was barely room to even stand on the carpet due to a green trunk placed on top of it as well. Overall, Trixie felt it was actually rather cozy, if a little bit weird. She glanced back up at the birdhouses and noticed some veins grew along the ceiling as well. Curious. But it does fit in with the decor. Trixie closed her eyes, feeling the strain starting to get to her. It was annoying to think that hitting her head could make her sleep for so long. Before she drifted off once again, a new scent made its way into the room. Some pony was cooking. Chapter 10. Rambling. Counting out 50 bits from her pouch, Trixie floated the coins over at Fluttershy's request. Of course, the crafty pony had expected an outrageous sum for the time the successful showmare had lodged with her, but Trixie was hardly in any position to argue. A single shout would alert half of Ponyville. As she placed each bit down on the table, the noise of the coins landing became louder each time, rising from a simple metallic clank to dull thuds, then finally to near-deafening stomps. When the sound stopped, the walls of the small farm shook and bent under the protests of the groaning wood. Gasping, Trixie dashed out the door into the fresh air, leaving the yellow Pegasus to their spoils, and spun around staring up at a gigantic blue bear. Its massive clawed paws rested upon the straw roof of Fluttershy's house, digging its claws into the wooden beams. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, they shared a stare of recognition, one in terror, the other in hunger. The sight of the Ursa had the blue unicorn shaking on her hoofs. It had tracked her down and come back for more. Before she could even will her legs to obey, the house creaked and gave way under the Ursa's full weight, collapsing in seconds. The Ursa stomped over the flattened building on its way towards Trixie, snagging her with a large clawed paw. Trixie let out a pained cry, feeling the sharp claws digging into her body. She stared at the massive transparent beast while it opened its maw to roar at her, giving her a second look at the menacing teeth, easily the size of her head. She could feel its hot breath against her face, its last meal apparently a vegetable stand. Tears ran down her cheeks while it threw her into the air, allowing her one final look at the world before she fell into the waiting jaws. Letting out a scream, Trixie thrusted her hooves forward in a desperate attempt to push the Ursa away, to live just one more moment, to find herself in a warm bed, staring down at a terrified wet Fluttershy, laying toppled over on the floor next to her bed in a pool of something. A wooden bowl rolled away before it started to come to a spinning stop, finally resting upside down. The fast breaths of both ponies were the only sounds in the air while Trixie stared down at Fluttershy in confusion, then quickly looked around. The Ursa was nowhere to be found, and she was back in the bedroom again. Her gaze returned to the trembling pony on the floor while a crushing guilt twisted her stomach. Nightmare, Trixie explained, laying back down just wishing she could disappear. Fluttershy slowly got back onto her hooves. That's okay. It's my fault for trying to wake you up, she whimpered. Trixie winced, feeling even worse, but said nothing. Once back on her hooves, Fluttershy picked up the bowl. I'll be back soon, she said, heading out of the room, leaving Trixie alone again. Time seemed to crawl by agonizingly slowly, leaving Trixie to look down at what she assumed was left of the vegetable soup Fluttershy had brought her. She pinned her ears back in shame. It's not really Trixie's fault. Fluttershy even said so, she said, trying to reassure herself, but the words seemed so hollow. Trixie uttered a frustrated sigh. The rhythmic pounding in her head did not feel so bad compared to the pit in her stomach. Trixie soaked ponies before for her act. It's no different, right? The door creaked, drawing Trixie's attention back to Fluttershy, who was carrying another bowl into room. She had a mop tucked below her left wing. Fluttershy was still a mess, small pieces of carrot, celery and onions sticking to her. Patches of her fur were wet and matted. Fluttershy set the bowl down on the part of the blanket covering Trixie's lap, giving a nervous smile. It's a little cold, I'm sorry. Then she changed her attention on cleaning up the floor quickly. Trixie could not believe it. What kind of a doormat would get soup thrown at them only to bring another bowl before even taking care of themselves? And apologize for it while she's at it. It's so weak, so. Trixie's train of thought was derailed by the scent of the soup. The first warm meal she had had in days was just too alluring not to lift up and bring to her lips immediately. Fluttershy looked up from her task and caught sight of Trixie starting at her meal and flashed a warm smile, like she was watching a skittish squirrel accept a nut. Setting the bowl back down, Trixie's eyes met with Fluttershy's, prompting the pony to quickly return to work. Why are you not mad at Trixie? Huh? What do you mean? Trixie more or less attacked you, wasted food and made a mess of you and your home. Doesn't it make you angry? Fluttershy shook her head. Oh. No. I know you did not mean to. I mean, I don't think you did. Accidents happen. Just like the Ursa. Trixie flinched. Oh, I'm sorry, I should not have brought it up. Fluttershy looked down at the floor. Trixie swallowed nervously. Did you mean that? You don't blame Trixie for the Ursa attack? I only heard the story from Rainbow Dash, but You did not bring the Ursa. And no pony got hurt. Except you. Fluttershy looked miserable, bringing up another bad memory for Trixie. Trixie scowled at the reminder of her humiliation, giving a glare at Fluttershy and opening her mouth to retort, but then paused, her expression softening. It's fine. Trixie gave a small smile. Trixie knows you did not mean to. Fluttershy returned the smile, a warm, honest smile, just as Trixie had seen when she'd first woken up and displayed she had made progress after a few questions. It made Trixie feel strangely warmer somehow. It was pleasant. "How are you feeling?" Fluttershy asked. Trixie blinked, lifting her gaze up from the smile to meet the examining eyes of the caring Pegasus. "What? Oh." Trixie's head hurts, but she feels much better than before. It's not too bad if Trixie does not move much or cast spells. Or touches it. In hindsight, it occurred to Trixie all of these things were completely obvious, as she had been told to rest. "Trixie has some questions, and you seem more talkative now." "Oh, what do you want to know?" "What happened to Trixie?" "You." "Well, in the forest." "Don't you remember?" Trixie remembers little. She was lost in the forest and saw a rainbow. The rest is a blur. "Trixie, I mean you, got into a fight with Rainbow Dash." This silenced the unicorn for a moment, trying to recall the fight. "You mentioned that name before." Trixie remembers she was interrupting Trixie's show with two other ponies. "So how are you related to them?" "They're my friends," Fluttershy said with an obvious happiness in her voice. "Oh, but they should not have heckled you." "I'm sorry." Trixie was taken aback with this news for a moment. She was resting in the house of a friend of the three ponies that had heckled her show, and one of them was apparently responsible for her concussion. Pushing away the empty bowl and covers she was resting under, Trixie's expression hardened. Trixie wants to leave, now. Chapter 11. Regained. Rainbow Dash held her who firmly planted against her face, hearing Fluttershy's attempts to introduce herself to Trixie. That pony seriously needed to work on being more assertive. She could not understand why this was so hard for her friend. It was not like she was expecting Fluttershy to shout at a dragon or anything. That was never going to happen. Just to keep her voice steady for once. "You found Trixie?" Fluttershy smiled, delighted. "That's great. Where is she, Rainbow? What's wrong? You look ill." Rainbow Dash trembled. "There is no time, Fluttershy. Follow me quick, she's hurt." Immediately she took to the skies again. Rainbow Dash sighed quietly, letting her head lean against a wall as she stared at the doorpost, not really looking at it however, as her mind was elsewhere. She thought back on the stressful trip they had getting Trixie here. Rainbow Dash had barely held it together. She could still hear the sickening sound echo through her mind from when her hooves met with the unicorn's skull. "Trixie. Rainbow Dash, what happened to her?" Fluttershy cried out, seeing the bleeding, passed-out unicorn, and quickly kneeled down beside her. Rainbow's ears laid down flat. "It was an accident. She kept yelling at me. I didn't mean." She watched Fluttershy turn back to face her, staring in disbelief for a crushing couple of seconds. "Gee, get a doctor," she finally stammered, letting her attention return to Trixie. I can't fix this. Now, Rainbow, now." The urgency in Fluttershy's voice was so severe, Rainbow Dash did not even spare a word, immediately kicking off the ground to rocket towards Ponyville. Shivering with the thought of what might have happened, she did not like the little show-off, but hurting her that badly had never been her intention. Rainbow Dash still was not entirely sure how it even ended up that way. She was there to reluctantly help take Trixie out of the forest. "Well, I certainly managed to do that." letting her gaze fall to the floor ashamed. She was not even allowed into the room to avoid causing the weakened Trixie any more stress. When they heard the fall upstairs, Rainbow had been the first to get the door only to freeze after a reminder from Fluttershy. She got lucky. It's bad, but if she gets plenty of rest she should be okay. Keep doing the tests and if she does get worse come get me immediately. Nurse Redheart packed up what remained of her bandage rolls into a small bag. The first week will be most important. She must stay in bed, no activities and no moving about, or she will get worse. It figured that the second they left Trixie alone, the first thing she tried was to get out of bed and accuse Fluttershy of holding her captive, getting more than a little stressed out in the process. The urge to march in there and give Trixie another piece of her mind was just barely overruled by the guilt of putting her into the position in the first place. It will be fine. Even if she's incredibly shy, I've never seen Fluttershy shy away from helping any living thing. Rainbow Dash grinned cheesily at her self-proclaimed hilarious wit. Try to sleep, it's okay now. Fluttershy made her way out of the bedroom, finding Rainbow Dash standing there with a grin on her face, earning a confused look from the mare. Are you laughing, Rainbow? Rainbow Dash tensed up, pulled from her thoughts to look at her friend. Of course she had to come right then. What? No, well yes but only because I thought of something awesome. She tried to keep her voice down and gave a glance towards the door. So how is she? Not worse, but not much better either. At least she did not hit her head during the fall, and I don't think she will try it again soon. Fluttershy moved past Rainbow Dash down the stairs. Rainbow Dash, ponies are animals too, right? This time it was Fluttershy that earned the look of confusion from Rainbow Dash. What? Yeah, I guess. She followed after Fluttershy, giving a swish of her rainbow patterned tail as she did so, just glad to get moving again. Good, then I wasn't lying. I'm going to make her something to eat. Can you go into town and do something for me please? It won't take long. Trixie wants to leave, now. Trixie rolled onto her side and slipped out of the bed, careful not to move too quickly and set off fireworks in her head again. What? Why? Was it something I said? I'm sorry. Fluttershy took a few steps backwards away from the bed. Yeah, you really should stay in bed. Doctor's orders. Fluttershy tried to protest. The great and powerful Trixie does not need to explain herself. Steadying herself on her hooves, a brief look of concern flashed over her face before she managed to mask it, taking careful steps towards the door. Trixie please, tell me what's wrong. Fluttershy walked with Trixie, staying too close for the show mare's comfort. You are friends with those ponies. She snapped at Fluttershy, causing her to recoil. How can Trixie trust you? You just want to keep Trixie here. Trixie saw Rainbow Dash. She knows your friends are here. For what purpose she would be kept by the ponies that had the most reason to hate her she was not sure, but it could not possibly be good. We are not keeping you here Trixie, but well You just can't leave. I'm sorry. Fluttershy said hesitantly. It's not safe. The ears of both ponies perked up when they heard fast wing beats rising up the stairs. If Trixie is not being kept, then allow Trixie to leave. Otherwise, what is the difference? Her head was swimming at this point, and a misstep caused her to nearly floor herself, if not for Fluttershy being so close by she could catch her. Oh, please be careful. What if you fall? What if you hit your head? What if you hit your head and you fall? Fluttershy sounded terrified. Well, what's going on here? Rainbow Dash landed nearby, shrugging off a saddlebag to the floor. She knew she was not meant to enter, but by the looks of things, the damage had been done anyway. Where do you think you're going? She pointed a hoof at Trixie, then towards the bed. Back to bed, Rainbow Dash said, giving a glance at Fluttershy, who slipped away from Trixie and past her, but not paying the timid mare much mind. Trixie's eyes went wide at the sight of Rainbow Dash, taking a quick unsteady step back. Yeah, you stay away from Trixie. Trixie is leaving, yeah, you won't ever see her again. She bit her tongue. That sounded less like threatening and more like pleading, and she hated herself for it. Wait. Fluttershy stood by the saddlebags, her voice almost inaudible compared to the two loud ponies. What? No, I'm not just gonna let you walk out of here. Are you crazy? Rainbow Dash lifted a hoof to tap the side of her head. You could die. Wait, Fluttershy spoke, looking from one to the other, pointing a hoof down at the bags. Trixie swallowed hard. It sounded to her like Rainbow Dash was threatening her. She was really not allowed to leave, and if she tried, the violent mare would take her down again like before. No, you can't keep Trixie prisoner. Trixie did nothing to deserve this. Tears swelled up in her eyes while she took another step back from Rainbow Dash. Wait. The pair still ignored the soft-spoken Pegasus. Rainbow took a step forward. I don't even know what you are talking about anymore. Are you even listening to me? You can't leave, or you'll die, and it will be my fault. She stared down at the ever-shrinking Trixie. What's wrong with that unicorn? Wait. Fluttershy shook a hoof, trying to get their attention while watching the increasing distress. Trixie tried to take another step back, but her hind legs gave out on her, causing Trixie crumble to her haunches, shaking as she stared up at Rainbow Dash. Trixie understands. Please don't hurt Trixie anymore. Crying openly with fright as she stared up at the mare, she could not remember much about their previous encounter besides rainbow colors and pain, both of which returning to her head. Rainbow Dash looked puzzled with Trixie's reaction. Okay, good, if you understand. She reached a hoof out for Trixie, who flinched in turn, then get back to B. Wait! Fluttershy yelled, drawing the attention of both shocked mares to her. Fluttershy picked up the saddlebags, then knelt down beside the crying and trembling unicorn. SHHH. It's okay. Gingerly, she moved one hoof around Trixie, using the other to open up the saddlebags. Look what Rainbow Dash brought you. Trixie shook from muzzle to tail while Fluttershy approached. Her head felt as though she'd been trapped in a vice. The soothing words calmed her down somewhat, while the hoof around her felt warm and comforting. Trixie leaned against the kind mare and peered into the opened bag. Her eyes went wide. Inside the bag was a supply of oats, a canteen, a rolled-up parchment, but more importantly than any of those, a familiar star-patterned purple hat. Trixie's eyes locked onto the hat, then shot back up to Rainbow Dash, recalling what Fluttershy had said. She did remember seeing the blue Pegasus bring the saddlebags in. Yeah, you got this for Trixie. Rainbow Dash stared down at the pair while the events started to sink in and make more sense to her. Yeah, I did. The cloak's on the other side. She nodded to the right saddlebag that was still closed. Fluttershy fished out the hat, handing it to Trixie, who clutched it to her chest so tightly, it might have split in two if she was any stronger. Fluttershy motioned to Rainbow Dash and gave a nod down at the bag. We were going to give the saddlebag to you once you were ready to leave, but... Well, I guess you are ready now. A few quick glances were exchanged before Rainbow Dash knelt down as well, opening up the other bag. This one contained many of the same items, though the oats were replaced with hay, and the scroll with a small empty sack. Rainbow Dash pulled out the cloak and offered it to Trixie. Trixie leaned closer against Fluttershy, feeling her shaking subside slowly in her embrace. Even Rainbow Dash seemed less scary than she had a moment ago. She reached out one hoof to carefully take the cloak, then held it just as tightly as her hat. She stared at the old clothes like they were the greatest treasure she could have asked for. She felt strange. The entire thing did not fit in at all with what she'd expected from the ponies, but here they were. She looked at the pair of Pegasi. She wanted to say something, but struggled to find the words she'd not spoken in so long they felt alien on her tongue, but at the same time so perfect. Thank you. Chapter 12. Realization. Trixie swept the floor of Fluttershy's cottage. She had never thought that such a mundane act could be anything but a bore, yet she could not help but smile as she worked. It felt good to be moving about again after being forced to stay in bed for what felt like forever. Though given how much of the day Trixie slept away, it was not really something she could object to, even if the few waking hours had been boring. Trixie can't believe she almost did not even let Trixie do this. The great and powerful Trixie. She paused for dramatic effect. Does not get winded from simple manual labor. Who does she think pulled Trixie's wagon? During the days that she had been bed-bound, forbidden to read, and with no pony to talk to, the minutes had crawled past slower than discord, and the thing was petrified. Fluttershy still made for a very poor conversationalist and often only had a small amount of time between doing chores, making it even harder to break any ice. Rainbow Dash, on the other hoof, had not come into her room again at all, supposedly for her rest. Trixie reared the broom back for a moment, then swung hard to send the pile of dust out the door, scattering it to the wind with a satisfied smirk. Another foe chased out by the great and powerful Trixie. Her life of boredom had finally changed today. She'd gotten the okay to leave her room and wander around the house and garden, though Trixie had elected to stay inside the house for safety. Even if Ponyville was out of earshot, it could still be seen clearly, and it stood to reason if she could see Ponyville, it could see her. Despite this, however, her magic was still off limits for over a week, which was something she had agreed to initially, but when the headache stopped, she quickly regretted it. Trixie threw an annoyed glare at the broom while she replayed her attempt to renegotiate. But Trixie is fine. These are spells every foal could do, Trixie said. Rainbow Dash hovered in mid-air, pointing a hoof at Trixie. And every Pegasus foal can fly, but even I know you don't go flying with a broken wing, it won't heal right. Well then Trixie is sure you'd be okay not flying for a week? In solidarity? Trixie pointed down at the floor. Trixie grinned at the look on Rainbow's face. She knew full well no Pegasus would agree to that. Oh. Fluttershy looked up from her conversation with a pair of mice, that she apparently had voluntarily living in her wall. Sure, if it will make it easier. Trixie dragged a hoof down her face, except that one, of course. Fluttershy had not minded. But that was never the point she had been trying to make. Now she had ended up accidentally grounding Fluttershy. Just to make matters worse, she could not complain about not getting to use magic if Fluttershy did not complain about flying. Her eyes fell upon the saddlebags next to the door, giving a smile at the sight. They had been left there by Fluttershy as a constant reminder that Trixie could at any point pick up the bags and head out if she really wanted to. Though it was followed by the most talking she had ever heard from the shy pony for almost an hour straight about how it did not mean she wanted Trixie to leave, only that it was symbolic for the freedom to do so. Trixie felt a soft grin creep up. Perhaps Trixie's teasing her with a hurt expression was a bit cruel, but it was so effective in getting her to finally use that lovely voice, worth it. Trixie paused a moment at her wording, tilting her head. Lovely? Him. Well it was, Trixie supposes. Trixie's ears perked up when she heard hoof steps that trotted along the meandering dirt road that led to the cottage. Peeking out the door to check, she found Fluttershy, and just as she expected, in the company of Rainbow Dash, voicing her displeasure loud enough for Trixie to pick up on. Come on, Fluttershy, she's not even here. It doesn't count if she can't see you fly. Rainbow Dash flew another impatient circle around the walking Pegasus. Fluttershy just smiled. I'm sorry. She then noticed Trixie in the doorway and waved. Hello, Trixie, still up? Her eyes scanned over her patient briefly. Trixie rested the broom against the wall. Welcome home, and welcome respectively. Trixie is fine, Fluttershy. She won't fall down from one morning's work. Good. Fluttershy passed over the threshold and glanced down at the freshly swept floor. Thank you, Trixie, for helping I mean. She made her way to the kitchen with the groceries. Rainbow Dash landed beside Trixie, getting a small flinch from her. She gave a hurt look in return. "I wish you'd stop doing that." Trixie recovered quickly. Trixie does too. Trixie knows it's pathetic. She looked at the rainbow-collared mane with a shudder, then stared at the floor. "No, it's not that. It's a little awkward." Rainbow Dash raised her hoof to scratch the back of her neck. The both of them stood in silence for a moment before Fluttershy returned. "Rainbow Dash, are you staying for lunch?" "No thanks, Fluttershy," said Rainbow Dash while she returned to the air. "I have a rain cloud to deliver to Ash's, and Granny Smith promised apple pie for speedy delivery. I'm almost late as is actually, so I'll see you guys later." She took off at top speed. Trixie's eyes went wide from seeing Rainbow Dash make it to the other side of Ponyville, cloud and hoof, in no time flat. Wait, what? Was she always that fast? Disbelief was written across Trixie's face. She had to have been seeing things. She looked over to Fluttershy. Fluttershy, on the other hoof, seemed to barely take notice. She just looked at Trixie in confusion. "I'm sorry." "You mean Rainbow Dash?" "Well no, I guess she used to be slower in flight school." "Why?" Not quite what Trixie meant. It was difficult to estimate distance when she flew straight up in the air during Trixie's show, but if she can cover that much ground. Her eyes drifted between the road to Ponyville and the ever-free forest. Trixie never stood a chance. Chapter 13. Regret. Trixie set down plates upon the table. Trixie has actually been looking forward to this for a while now. "Oh. What do you mean?" asked Fluttershy while she carried a wooden plank with fresh bread over. "Eating at a table, with company. It's funny, Trixie once thought breakfast in bed would be a great thing, but she tired from it quickly." She glanced at the bread and licked her lips while she took in the scent. Also solid food, glorious solid food. Fluttershy scraped her hoof along the floor. "You Nurse Redheart said you couldn't have any for a day." "Oh, Trixie supposes that makes sense." Honestly, Trixie does not think she would have liked to chew anything with her head being on fire like that. "How about you?" "No," Fluttershy said. Trixie waited briefly for the pony to say anything else while they decked the table, but when nothing came, she gave another shot at inviting the conversation. "So, do you like it here in Ponyville?" Fluttershy gave a small nod while she brought a knife to the table. She dropped the knife next to the bread plank. "Yes. That's good. Do you often pick up stray ponies you find in a forest?" Trixie has to wonder. Trixie put on a somewhat forced smile while she tried to coax more of a conversation out of the cripplingly shy mare. Why does she have to be so difficult? "Oh, no." Fluttershy broke her gaze away from Trixie. Trixie raised a brow as another attempt was shot down, then paused. She recalled stumbling across another way to get Fluttershy to speak more during the saddlebag incident. Perhaps that was worth another shot. Trixie raised her eyes up for a moment with a contemplative look, then uttered an overly dramatic gasp. So Trixie could have eaten properly for 2 days already. Her gaze returned to Fluttershy. Fluttershy lowered her head and ate behind her mane as Trixie stared down at her. Well, it's just. I didn't Fluttershy shook on her hooves while she spoke. Trixie rose her 4 hooves off the ground, balancing on her hind legs. The great and powerful Trixie, for 3 whole days was given nothing but soup. Because you thought you should second-guess a professional? She towered over the quaking mare. Fluttershy ducked to the floor, her eyes covered with her hooves. Words had left her voice altogether and caused her to merely utter a soft adorable squeak. Trixie's ears perked up as she listened to the odd sounds Fluttershy made while cowering beneath her. She stared down on the shaken Fluttershy and felt a tinge of regret stab her. Trixie will tell you what she thinks about that. She brought down her hooves on either side of Fluttershy's head gently, then stroked the pink mane Fluttershy had behind her side with her muzzle. The best soup Trixie ever had. She lowered her voice to match the soft-spoken Pegasus and flashed her an impish smile. Fluttershy lifted her hooves from her tear-struck face, staring at Trixie for a couple seconds, whose smile quickly faltered upon the sight. "Yeah, you're as bad, Gilda." Fluttershy's voice was barely above a whisper. Trixie's chest felt 2 sizes too small while she stumbled away, struggling for something to say. The feeling was so strange to her. Why did she feel so terrible for her little prank? All she wanted was to get some response out of the shy mare, but not like this. Fluttershy slipped out from under Trixie, avoiding her gaze while she ran out the front door and took flight. Trixie ran after her, but froze in the doorway, unable to follow after her. Trixie did not mean to." She looked up after Fluttershy. Even outside, she seemed to stick to that almost floating method of flying. She was so much slower than Rainbow Dash, but it still only took a moment for her to vanish into one of the clouds above. Trixie turned back towards the half-set table, slowly walking nearer. Stupid Trixie. Why did Trixie have to tease her again? Trixie stomped her hoof against the kitchen floor, closing her eyes tightly. How was she supposed to know Fluttershy would take the joke so badly? She was grounded. If she flew, then Trixie really messed up. Feeling something warm streak across her face, Trixie lifted up a hoof to swipe at it. Opening her eyes, Trixie found her vision blurred by her own tears. It confused her why this was so painful. She was more than used to reducing ponies to tears on stage. Trixie sat down by the table looking at the half-finished setup of what should have been her best meal in days. Somehow, it did not seem at all appealing anymore. Trixie does not understand. It was just a joke. Why would she react like that? Despite all of Trixie's efforts, she failed to understand what had happened exactly. Her best results still ended up at the fact she'd hurt Fluttershy, and for some reason, she just could not shake the thought at all of her crying face. Maybe Trixie should get things ready for when she comes back. Trixie got up from the table and made her way into the kitchen. She carried out a bowl of fresh cut grass and flowers to put beside the bread. The work distracted her for a little while, but soon enough she found herself stretching to find anything else to put on the table. Water pitcher, berries, a carrot, another empty bowl in case she wants nothing. All that's missing is... Trixie turned her head towards the door, half expecting to have Fluttershy walk through right on cue, but the moment stretched out gradually to an awkward staring contest with the doorknob. Finally Trixie tore her gaze away. She placed one foreleg across the table, then rested her head on top with a sigh. Her free hoof rose up to tap herself on the head solemnly. Maybe Trixie should try to find her. But she flew up into the clouds. Trixie does not know any spells that can do that. Besides, what would happen if Trixie went looking, and Fluttershy came back when Trixie was gone? Trixie scratched through her mane, considering that maybe she should never have gotten out of the bed. She was not sure how much time had passed when her ears perked up, catching the sound of wing beats outside. Quickly she got up from the table and made her way to the door to welcome Fluttershy back. But something did not feel right. Trixie halted halfway across the room. It did not sound at all like the light hovering wing beats that had left. These were much faster, stronger strokes. The sounds of wings suddenly ceased. It was exchanged for hooves that crashed strongly into the dirt road, skidding through it, and knocking aside the pebbles, followed immediately by ever louder galloping. Trixie could sense her body starting to shake while she backed away from the door, her ears pinning flat. Trixie's eyes widened while she stared at the door. Oh no. Chapter 14. Rampage. The late afternoon sun shone down pleasantly on all of Ponyville with only a couple of puffy white clouds lazily drifting by. The warm weather perfect for a picnic, casual stroll, or as one pony preferred, a quick nap in the sky on one of those clouds. Warm sun rays shone through the window, warming up the floor of Fluttershy's cottage, and Trixie's hooves as she crept away from the door. Many things raced through her mind in the couple of seconds in between the heavy landing outside and the sound of a hoof on the front door. Trixie, being a storyteller, felt it was just plain wrong for the weather to be this beautiful right before she was going to die. She felt certain scenes like this, where the enraged antagonist stormed in, should come with dark overcast skies, rain and lightning. For a brief moment, she had managed to convince herself that if the weather did not match, then surely neither did the situation. Surely the door was going to swing open and reveal a smiling face ready to let little mistakes go, then talk about it in the sunshine. But then the door opened and that last ray of hope quickly disappeared. Trixie shook from mane to tail, staring up at the bright vibrant colors glistening in the sunlight, sharply contrasted against the clear blue sky. Such warm colors, yet still they chilled her down to the bone. "A Rainbow Dash?" Rainbow Dash's eyes quickly fixated on Trixie for a moment, a look of surprise on her face as though she had expected not to find her, but it soon steeled into determination. She walked closer, letting each hoof land with enough force that Trixie could feel the tremors. "Whoa, so you're still here, huh? Well, that saves me the trouble of looking for you," Rainbow Dash said. Trixie backed away, while Rainbow Dash closed in on her. "Teeth, Trixie. Trixie this, Trixie that. Can't you speak like a normal pony?" Her wings flared out, blocking the sunlight, leaving Trixie in the shade. "Great and powerful Trixie, huh? I bet you felt real great and powerful picking on Fluttershy of all ponies." No. Trixie tried to step back again, but found herself pressed into a corner, trapped in by the wooden walls. Rainbow halted just barely an inch away. Nearly all Trixie could see was the anger within her eyes. "Oh, you can't? Well, I guess that's just one thing you can't do better, then. Was that your idea? Show Fluttershy that you are better than her too." Trixie reared up on her hind legs, feeling her back pressed against the wall. Her hooves raised to shield her face. Blurry memories of their last encounter rose to the surface while every fiber of her being screamed at her to escape somehow. "Gee, go away. Leave Trixie alone." Two hooves struck against the wood next to Trixie's head as Rainbow Dash pinned her to the wall. "After what you did. Humiliating me, my friends, threatening Ponyville and taunting Twilight afterward. Fluttershy still told me to find you. This is how you repay her? You play with her, chase her out of her own house, and decide well that was fun. Trixie will have lunch." She jabbed a hoof towards the set table. Trixie could feel Rainbow Dash's hot breath against her hooves while the voice vibrated through her bones. She trembled all over, trying her best to hide her head behind her forelegs. She could maybe take a few hits to the body, but her head was already feeling like it was about to explode. Her tears ran down her muzzle, and her voice cracked. No, not my fault. Rainbow, please. I didn't me. The worst part is, you aren't even sorry for what you did. You didn't even try to ask me how Fluttershy was." Rainbow pulled her hooves back from the wall briefly, then slammed them back down, watching Trixie flinch in response. "You're just scared for what I'll do to you." Trixie said nothing this time and just sobbed into her hooves. She wanted to claim she did care, but Rainbow Dash was right. She had not spent a single thought on Fluttershy's condition or making it up to her since the door opened, but only cowered and tried to get out of whatever punishment she was to receive for her actions. As she thought about, her reaction to what happened in Ponyville had been the same, merely fleeing consequences whenever they loomed up, just like back home. "Do you understand what you did wrong, Trixie? Don't worry, I will make sure you do." She leaned in closer to the shrunken Trixie, who sunk through her legs, trying to avoid her. "You are scared of me, aren't you? No matter how nice I act, no matter how much I might promise not to hurt you, deep down inside you're terrified. You could not even look me in the eye this morning, you want to run and hide. And it feels terrible, doesn't it?" Trixie swallowed. She tried her best to summon up the courage to reply, but settled for merely nodding to the questions. Her whole body quaked, and she could not stop crying just being near her, despite absolutely nothing bad having happened to her yet. She just waited in terror for when the lecture was over and the punishment began. "Good, I want you to remember that fear, that feeling that you are just a breath away from something horrible. 'Cause that is how Fluttershy feels, about everything, all the time." Rainbow Dash pushed away from the wall, letting her four hooves land on the floor again. She turned away from Trixie. The difference is Fluttershy is brave. She does her best every day to be kind to every pony, even if she's scared. Even if it's you, and you decided to torment her. Think about that. With a thud, Trixie slumped down the wall onto her haunches, still huddled up in the corner. Her hooves had slipped down from their defensive posture to stare at Rainbow Dash in shock. Had that been it all along? Fluttershy had not just been merely shy, but also actively scared of her. She felt a crushing pain in her chest at the thought of putting Fluttershy through what she had just experienced herself. Her eyes tearing up as she stared up at Rainbow Dash. I'm sorry. I didn't think. I'm so sorry." "Where is she, Rainbow Dash? I have to make this right, please. Yeah, you can do what you want afterwards." Rainbow Dash turned her head, looking down at the crumpled form of Trixie quivering in the corner as she pleaded. She stared at her silently for a moment before she finally pointed up a hoof towards the staircase. She went through the window. "She's upstairs in her bed." Trixie scrambled onto her hooves, nodding at Rainbow Dash. Thank you." She slipped past her and climbed the stairs. She quickly reached the second floor and looked around briefly. There was a door to the room she'd been staying in the past 3 days, but there were no other doors. What the? Where is the door to Fluttershy's room? Oh. Chapter 15. Return. Trixie stared at the wooden door that led into the bedroom she had been recovering in the past 3 days. She knew she was supposed to go inside and find Fluttershy, but she had no idea what she was even going to say. Although she took a deep breath and did her best to calm down, her heart still pounded in her throat after the confrontation with Rainbow Dash. The idea that she would have to deal with her again after the talk with Fluttershy made her shiver, but she was not going to run this time. It felt strange to realize that all this time she had been using Fluttershy's room, completely unaware. Of course this had to have been intentional on the part of the Pegasi, leaving her in the dark about what room she was in. Perhaps it was another one of those tricks to keep her from stressing out. That certainly proved to be the right call, as now Trixie was definitely stressing over it. Thoughts and plans on what to say or do rushed in and out of her mind on how to act once she walked through the door, act like nothing had happened, scream she was sorry, explain it was a joke, casually mention she did not mean it, run back down and bring the food up, fall on her knees and grovel, accuse her of being too sensitive, make a gallop for the window and run for it. She shook her head to clear it inside. Why was half of that avoiding the issue entirely? Okay Trixie, before Rainbow Dash gets impatient. Wait no, Trixie is not here to stall for time. Focus on what matters. She kicked herself in the shin for getting distracted from what had been her goal in the first place, Fluttershy. Although she had made absolutely no progress in planning out her next move, she finally pushed open the door. The room was still darkened, but she could tell the sheet before the window was gently moving with the breeze. Almost nothing else in the room had changed except for one thing, the pony in the bed. Trixie's hoof knocked against the wood of the open door. She could tell the noise made the figure under the blankets flinch. Fluttershy. May Trixie come in? Silence hung in the air for several moments before the blankets were pushed aside, revealing the creamy Pegasus underneath. Even in the dark, Trixie could still spot the moist fur on her cheeks. Fluttershy gave a nod. "It's okay, Trixie." The door closed with a gentle kick before Trixie moved towards the side of the bed, looking down at the floor. "Trixie scared you?" Trixie did not mean. Well, Trixie did mean to scare you. But only a little. She could not bring herself to raise her gaze. Fluttershy listened quietly to Trixie's attempts at explaining herself. "Oh. It's okay." That soft kind voice shook Trixie more than the scolding she had received earlier. No. It's not okay. You have been nothing but good to Trixie. Trixie should never have done that. It's just that. Trixie wanted to talk with you more, but Trixie did not stop to think maybe you did not. It was selfish of Trixie. Trying to force you. Tears rolled down her muzzle and dripped to the ground. While Trixie did not raise her gaze from the floor, she could see just a little bit of Fluttershy, noticing she had pushed the blankets away entirely and was now just laying on her stomach with her legs folded underneath her. I'm sorry, Trixie. I don't understand what you want. If I can't say it's okay, what do you suggest? Trixie doesn't know. It feels so hollow. You can't just say it's okay. Get mad at Trixie, yell at her, hit her, say you don't believe her, throw her out, make her do something. Anything. Trixie stomped her hoof against the floor. Fluttershy shrank while she listened to the whole list of things she was apparently supposed to be doing. Out of that list, there was only one she could possibly do. Trixie. See, could you come here? If you don't mind, that is. Fluttershy sat up on her haunches and patted a hoof next to her on the bed. Trixie raised her head briefly to look at Fluttershy uncomprehendingly, letting her gaze drift following the softly tapping hoof to the bed. Once she understood, she felt her face flush, and she looked down again, thankful for the poor lighting. Trixie. Trixie did say anything. She climbed onto the bed and sat down beside Fluttershy. Trixie averted her gaze nervously, trying to ignore the warm feeling of being beside her. You said you only wanted to talk more. Why did you not just ask me? I'm sorry, I did not realize you were feeling lonely. I guess you would be more used to having a crowd of ponies around. Fluttershy tilted her head down slightly to let her mane fall between them. I did not stay to watch your show. But I saw all those ponies smiling at you. I was not thinking, keeping you here all alone. Yeah, you are doing it wrong. Trixie is supposed to say she is sorry, not Fluttershy. She turned to finally look her in the eyes, only to find the pink curtain-like mane in the way. She was not sure if she felt relieved or disappointed. Trixie is sorry. Trixie knows she made a mistake. Thank you for taking care of Trixie until now. Trixie will go. A soft giggle sounded from the other side of the pink mane. That's a lot of Trixie's. But how do you feel? Not Trixie, you. With a tilt of her head, the mane fell to the side, letting their eyes meet. Trixie opened her mouth ready to snap for being made fun, but held her tongue when she found Fluttershy looking at her. What? Trixie. I am sorry, Fluttershy. Her ears laid down flat on her head. She felt so very small and exposed without the shield, her name, in the way. Fluttershy smiled at Trixie with that same lovely, kind smile, warming her up inside. I forgive Trixie, and I forgive you. Are you okay now? To her own surprise, Trixie felt herself lean against Fluttershy. Her eyes closed while she felt the warmth spread through her side. "Can I just stay like this for a little while? Please?" "Oh, of course." Fluttershy could see the dim light reflecting off the tears that ran down Trixie's cheek. Fluttershy allowed one of her wings to spread out, draped it over Trixie's back, adding a bit of pressure to make the both of them lie down. "As long as you need." Trixie shook when she felt something very soft and warm fall onto her back. She soon realized what it was when she felt it push her down. She sunk through her hooves, laying beside Fluttershy. She reveled in the warmth surrounding her. Every cold night, every scary fight forgotten for just a little while. "Thank you."